So I'm going to explain to you what Anunnaki means. So you have to understand that as a soul in a body, as a body with a soul in it, the truth of who you are lies deeper. It's on a deeper surface. So anything that we come into contact with, any kind of new information that we come in contact with on this planet, is going to have a deeper meaning. Why? Because we start from a deeper place. In our physical experience, in our existence, in your body, you start as a soul in a body. And that soul is the unseen force, which is the real you. And that's the part we don't speak about, which is the real you. So, if we start off not speaking about the soul and we think that this outside, this surface is the real you, that's going to lead into every other conversation we have on the planet. So whatever you come in contact with, you're going to look at it on the surface and you're going to miss the deeper side of it. And that's where everyone's perception comes in with the Anunnaki and with anything else. They look at it on the surface and they don't see the deeper meaning of it. And there's always a deeper meaning. Why? Because there's a deeper meaning to you, which is the soul. So nothing escapes that. So in our situations in our daily lives, when we talk about the Anunnaki, we look at them and we hear that they are beings that came from the heavens. They came down and rose the lower beings, the lower level of consciousness beings, up to a higher standard or a higher way of living. So the Anunnaki are a people or a being with a higher level of consciousness. If you look at the picture of the Anunnaki, one of the most popular pictures, you'll see that they have a pine cone. A pine cone is a symbol for the unraveling of consciousness. Because when a pine cone is tight and is very hard like a rock and it's tight, that's the level of consciousness that most people are on, thinking that they know something, but they're not willing to learn. And their brain is stubborn and stuck on what they think they know. And once it starts to open like a pine cone does, it starts to open like a flower. That means that your level of consciousness is beginning to expand and your level of being, you're rising to a different occasion. You're rising to a different level of consciousness. And that's one of the main symbols for the Anunnaki, is putting that new higher level of consciousness information and knowledge and making it part of your chemistry, making it part of your DNA so that you can spread that knowledge onto your next seed and they can become more enlightened in the next incarnation. Another symbol for the Anunnaki is the bird or the person with the animal head. And that is just a symbolism of a being connected to nature. So once you are so connected with nature, once you realize that as a soul in a body, or as a body, you have a soul, animals also have a body and they have a soul. So once you come in knowledge of you and animals are exactly the same. Animals are a body with a soul and humans are a body with a soul. So you both have flesh and blood. So you have a flesh, blood, and a soul. You have feelings. And once you learn that information and you make it part of your chemistry, you make it part of your DNA, you live in a whole different way than a meathead or a meat eater. You live in a whole different fashion. They do not even understand, understand, or overstand what you do when you leave that flesh alone. That flesh makes you almost a whole different being. It makes you a lower level consciousness being. So, Anunnaki is basically no one. It's a person who is in tune with nature, who knows about their expanding consciousness, and who is in total unison with the universe, and wants to spread that knowledge and spread that awareness and make it rain down over all the lower consciousness beings, and wants them to be risen to a higher level of consciousness. That's really all it is. We all have the power to become Anunnaki or become a God self, become someone from the heavens. And heaven, when you say that someone came from the heaven, their perception of heaven mostly came from the Bible. So they're thinking that a God is in heaven, they think that a Satan is in hell. But that's not the case at all, because the heaven is just somewhere that is way up high. Heaven just means somewhere in the clouds or somewhere in here, because your brain is the same shape of a cloud. So when you hear someone talk about in the heavens, they came down from the heavens, that means they came down from their most holy place, which is their highest level of consciousness. They came down to their root chakra, which is you, which is people on the lowest level. They came down because they realized we are all one. So when they say the higher level Annunaki, the higher level beings came down from heaven to teach the lower level beings, that means they came down from the most holy place, the highest level consciousness. They came down to frolic and teach the people on the root chakra, to bring them up to their solar plexus and to their crown chakra. So these interpretations of heaven and hell and Anunnaki and ancient wisdom are completely thrown off because there is an agenda from the government to make sure that the people do not realize their power and take their power back. So if they can keep you confused, they can keep you worshiping the wrong things, which is they can keep harvesting your energy in the wrong direction. They can keep you distracted by having your energy misdirected and misplaced when your energy is supposed to be focused on the universe and focused on saving the animals and focused on getting your soul right within and more in tune with the universe. That's really all you're here for, is to reconnect your soul with the universe and to make sure you live as one with it. Anything else, you're living as a monster and living in your lower dimension of existence. So if you want to raise your level of consciousness to a higher level of existence and become more like the Anunnaki and become more like your God self, you have to become one with nature, realize that you and nature are one. This is why the gods had a head of animals and the body of a human, because you actually are a human on this planet. It's just that your head has finally now realized your connection with nature. So this is the only reason why those people had animal heads, is because their brain finally realized their connection with nature, and now they're living as one, as they are a head of an animal and a body of a human. It's just a symbolism for how connected, how divinely connected we are to animals, and how one we are with animals. That's all it is. Nobody cut off an animal head and walked around with it on, or nobody was half man and half bird, or half man, half lion. It was just showing that we are complete one with animals, period. That's all it was about. So you have to raise your interpretation game up, step that up, and the best way to raise your level of consciousness and to step your interpretation game up is to stop eating meats, stop eating those flesh, because that flesh makes you dense, makes you too heavy and dense to even hear the light. You have to eat light foods to see the light, and the light and the truth will set you free. Each one teach one.